Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about the method overriding in Java. Method overriding. This method overriding definition means giving different implementations to the method. Okay. Every single method, it can have one implementation in one class. And if you would like to give different implementation to the method, it is possible through the overriding. But method overriding, it has one precondition. It must take place in a subclass. Which means if you would like to give different implementations to a method, you cannot do it in the same class. It has to be done in the subclass. After the class becomes parent class, the method can be overridden in the subclass. And then the method, it can have different implementations. Okay. And this method overriding, we need this concept because it's going to give, it is going to make our codes much more efficient, and it has the advantage of less memory usage, okay? And plus, it is going to improve the reusability, okay? Because you will be using one method for multiple different implementations. Only one method will be created. It will be overridden multiple times to give the multiple different implementations. So that's why it will improve the reusability of our codes significantly. Okay. For example, suppose that you created a parent class named shape. And in this shape class, you added this method draw. And because you needed this draw method in every single subclasses like square, circle, hexagon, rectangle, and any other classes. Okay. And when I call this draw method from the square class object, when the draw method gets executed from square class object, I want the draw method to draw me a square. And when the draw method gets executed from the circle object, I want this draw method to draw me a circle. But if the draw method gets executed from the hexagon class object, then I want this draw method to draw me a shape of hexagon. Okay. As you can see, multiple different implementations will be needed in order to get those expected outputs. But I don't have to create another draw methods in those subclasses. I can just reuse the draw method that is inherited from the parent class. All I have to do is I need to override this draw method in those subclasses. When I override this draw method, I will be able to give different implementation. Because this draw method, it can only have one implementation in the shape class, within shape class. If I need to give different implementation to it, I have to override it. So instead of creating a new methods for those child classes, I can continue to use this draw method. I just need to override it. So when I override it in the square class, I will give the implementation to the draw method that can print me a square, that can draw me a square on console. And when it comes to the circle class, I can also override the draw method, and then I can let this draw method to display a circle. And I can also do the same for the remaining child classes of the shape. So you can give as many different implementations as you want as long as there are enough subclasses. But at the end, there will only be one method that you created, which is this draw method. Okay. In this example here, this draw method, it will be having 3 different implementations. And which implementation will be executed when you call the method will be depending on from which object that you are calling the method from. If you call the draw method from square object, then the implementation that you give in the square class gets executed. But if you call the draw method from the circle object, then the implementation that you give to the draw method in the circle class gets executed. Okay. So when you override the method, you override the methods that belong to the object, which are the instance methods only. Okay. Because instance method, the more object you create, you can also have the more copy of the instances. So therefore that it allows us to have different implementation to the objects. Okay. And when you override the method, there are some certain rules that you must know. As for method overloading, any method you could overload, but for method overriding, it is not the same. So the first rule of method overriding is it must happen in the subclass. Is a relationship is a must. Okay. And when you override the method, the access modifier of the overridden method, it has to be either same or more visible. It can never be less visible. If you try to give any access modifier that is less visible than the original one, then it is going to give you a compile error. Okay? And also the return type. The return type, method name, and parameters of the overridden method, they need to be same. In the overloading, the return type, return type could be different or could be same, wouldn't matter. But in the method overriding, return type, method name, parameters, they need to be the same. Okay? And lastly, not every single method you can override. Okay? If the method, it has private access modifier, it cannot be overridden because private is not inherited to the subclass. And method overriding, it has to take place in subclass. In addition, you also cannot override the static methods and any method that contains final keyword. Okay, static method means belongs to the class. There's only one copy, and then the static method. That's why static method you cannot override it in the subclasses. And final methods, any method that contains the final keyword, you cannot override it either. This final keyword, we will explain it in our future videos. We are going to do practice with method overriding. Method overriding, it is the concept of giving different implementations to a method. So one method, it could have multiple different implementations through the overriding. And this method overriding, it has one precondition, which is it must take place in the subclass. Okay? Because in one class, the method, it can only have one implementation. If you would like to give different implementations, it has to happen in the different class. And it must be inherited first. Okay? So therefore, method overriding can only be done when there is a relationship among the classes. In our previous task, in the animal task that we previously have completed, we made this animal to be the parent class of cat, dog, and fish. Okay? And if you look at this animal class, we have created those methods, the eat method, move method, and toString. Okay? And when those methods are inherited to those child classes, they are inherited as it is. So what that means is that whenever you call eat method from the cat object or from the dog object or from the fish object, it is going to give you the same implementation. Okay, it is going to execute the same exact implementation that is inherited from the parent class. And what if you want some different implementation? If you want some different implementations in those cat, dog, and fish, those classes for this eat method, then the only way that you can do it is by overriding this method. For example, when I call this eat method from the cat object, I wanted to print me cat is eating cat food instead of just displaying this message on the console. Okay? And when this eat method being executed from the dog object, when it's being called from the dog object, I wanted to print me dog is eating the dog food. Okay? So I wanted different implementations for the eat method of cat and dog and fish. Okay? So therefore, I have to override this eat method in those subclasses that needs different implementation of the eat method. And we are not going to create another new method for those implementations. We can just reuse this method eat because it's already inherited to the cat, dog, and fish. Okay? And when you override the method, remember only the instance methods, they can be overridden. First, you need to make sure that it's an instance method. And the method, it cannot have private access modifier. It cannot have the final keyword either. Okay? So this method, it does not have private access modifier, and it also does not have the final keyword, which means we can override it. And when you override it, you also have to make sure that the access modifier that you are giving to the overridden method, it has to be either same or more visible. So if it is public, the access modifier that we have here, we have to provide access modifier that is same or more visible. So we don't have any access modifier that is more visible than the public. So therefore, the only option that we have right now is by giving the same access modifier, public. And as for the return type, method name, parameters in the method overriding, it needs to be the same. So please give the same return type, method name, and the parameters. Okay, and then you may give some different implementation that you wanted. So whenever this eat method is being called from cat object, I want to see this output, which prints me the cat, including the cat's name as well, is eating cat food. Okay, so now what happened is this eat method, there's only one eat method that is created in the memory. Okay, and that one eat method, it has multiple different implementation. It has this implementation in the animal object, and it has this implementation in the cat object. Okay, so if you call this eat method from the cat object, it is going to execute this implementation. And if you want the same for dog and fish, then you also need to override the eat method in the dog class and also in the fish class. Okay, and in IntelliJ, we do have a shortcut for overriding the methods. Okay, so for example, if you want the different implementation of this eat method in the dog object, first make sure that eat method is inherited to the dog through the inheritance. And then you can go to the generate session and select this override methods. See, when you select this override methods, it is giving you those options. It is giving you the options from the methods from the animal class, and it is also giving you the options from the methods from the object class. Okay, the reason it's giving you those two classes is because this object, it is the parent of all the classes in Java. Okay, this object class, it contains the methods that are needed for every single object, such as toString and also equals and also finalize. You see, these methods are needed for every single object. So Java, what it does is basically those methods are created one time, and we can continue to reuse it if we can continue to reuse it through overriding whenever we need the different implementation of those methods. Okay. And the method that I want to override is placed in the animal class. So inside the animal class, I can select this eat method and then click this OK button. You see? So by default, it is going to give you this override annotation. This override annotation is totally optional. It is just to check if the method is overridden method. If this override annotation is giving you compile error, it indicates that the method was not an overridden method. Okay? It means that it is a different method rather than instead of overridden method. Okay, and also by default, it is calling the parent class's version of eat method. The super keyword is used for calling the instance of the superclass. But if you don't want this implementation, you may give the different implementation that you want, such as whenever this eat method is being called from the dog object, I would like to print dog and also the name of the dog is eating dog food. Okay, so this is how we can give different implementations to the method through the method overriding. So now if the eat method is being called from dog object, you will see this output, and if the eat method is being called from the cat object, you are going to see this output on the console. So there's only one eat method, but we have given multiple different implementations to it. So this is method overriding.